Today we're going to be talking about how to write about logos in a rhetorical analysis. Logos can be a very tricky thing to write about because basically you are explaining what the logic of the argument is. And there are entire college majors devoted to learning logic. So it's not as easy as it sounds. There are things like, you might start, if to craft a logical argument, you might start with a theory and then find the evidence, and this is called deductive reasoning. You might start with the evidence and build up a theory, that's called inductive reasoning. You might base those theories on the scientific method and actually scientific facts, right? Or you might base those theories on philosophical premises, or you might base those theories just on feelings and emotions. So there's so many ways to craft a logical argument, and I don't want you to feel bogged down in these kind of details and these vocabulary words that you might not be totally comfortable with. It is okay not to know exactly what creates the logic of the argument. You can still write about logos, and that is because there's something called claim types. And there are 6 common types of claims that you can use to think about how a writer is crafting an argument logically. So as I am going through these claim types, I want you to take notes on what they are because I'm going to have you upload your notes to this assignment. So the first one is an evaluation argument. Evaluation is just what it sounds like. You're evaluating something. So this is like movie reviews, right? You sit down, you watch the movie, you think whether or not this movie was good or bad. So evaluation is going to determine whether or not how great or how terrible something is. Right, so you have the thing that you're evaluating, and you can make an argument based on all sorts of, criteria, whether that thing is any good or not. Another claim type that goes along with evaluation is an ethical claim type. This is very similar, but instead of arguing about how great or how terrible something is, you are arguing about how good or bad something is, in terms of like ethics or morals. Is this a good thing? Is this a good practice? Should we continue to do it? Or is it bad? Is it evil? Should we stop doing this? Is this a sin, or is this, what's the opposite of sin? Good thing. Okay, the third claim type is also very common. This is called a proposal argument, and basically it's how we should fix something. So if you identify a problem and the author, if the author identifies a problem and then the author has a solution for how we should fix that problem, that is a proposal argument. The fourth claim type is causal. This is basically about what caused something else. So you also might think of this as effects too, but basically anytime a writer is saying that they can identify the source of something, a certain problem or a certain phenomenon, that is a causal argument. What caused something else to happen? The fifth type is definitional. This one is a little bit less common, but basically this is when we have a disagreement about what something actually is. You might think of this when we are discussing terms that have a pretty clear dictionary definition, a denotation. Then definitional arguments are less important, but this is usually about connotation. So think about a term like torture. Torture is a very controversial term. A child might think that being grounded to their bedroom is torture. Someone else might say, no, that is not torture. Torture is something more strenuous or extreme, right? So we have arguments all the time about what torture actually is. So for example, something like waterboarding. This came up maybe 10 years ago. That was a huge debate. Is waterboarding actually torture? And that would be a definitional claim. You also think about like when people are arguing about art, like they'll see a Rothko painting. He's a modern artist, and it's just blocks of color, right? And some people might argue, oh, that's not art. You'll hear the argument, like my third grader could do that, right? And other people, art experts, will say, no, that is art because here is the definition of art. So that's a definitional claim. And the sixth claim type is resemblance. what something looks or feels like. So this is when you are saying that one phenomenon or one object resembles another. And these are important claim types because basically you are saying that we should treat these two things the same. Some people will make the argument sometimes about like liquor laws in Utah. That's a common resemblance argument where they will say that liquor laws in Utah resemble liquor laws during Prohibition. And the reason that they're making that argument, by the way, I don't agree with that argument. They're clearly different. But the reason that they are making that argument is so that we treat those two things the same way. Now, what would happen if we treated the liquor laws in Utah now the same way that we treated prohibition laws, the way that we treat prohibition laws? Well, basically what would happen is that we kind of understand that prohibition didn't work in this country. People still drank. It caused a big influx of organized crime. There's lots of reasons it didn't work. So they will say, okay, that means that we should treat Utah liquor laws that same way. We should recognize that they don't work in the same way that prohibition liquor laws don't work. Again, I am not saying that that is an argument I necessarily agree with, but that is a resemblance style of claim. So the reason that it helps to know these different claim types is that we can then identify how a writer is piecing together an argument. For example, if the writer is making an evaluation claim, we know that that writer is going to be using certain criteria to determine how great or how terrible something is. So we will go to that argument and we will pick apart the different criteria and we'll say, look, this writer is saying that it meets all of these criteria, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and so that equals a certain evaluation. You can think about this in terms of movie reviews, for example. Let's say we are trying to review the movie Jurassic Park, now on Netflix. Everyone should watch it. My favorite movie. So we're trying to evaluate Jurassic Park, right? And we are saying, okay, in order for something to be a good movie, it needs to be action-packed, it needs to have good character development, and it needs to be let's say you want it to be family friendly. Like that would make a good movie to you. You don't like movies that have too much profanity or nudity or something. So you're going to say it needs to be action-packed, good character development, and family friendly. And then you watch the movie, and according to those criteria, you can kind of decide, is this movie action-packed? Jurassic Park? Yes. Does this movie have good character development? I say yes, according to Jurassic Park. And then the third one, is it family friendly? There's not an excess of swearing, and even most of the violence is kind of like, it's not implied, but it's like there's no gore or anything. So I'm going to say, yeah, it's pretty family friendly according to me. And you'll notice how I'm doing this. It's all based on opinion, right? Arguments are based on opinion. If you don't have opinions in the argument, then it just becomes fact. So you have to base at least part of you can use facts to back up your opinions, but you have to have at least some opinions in an argument because that's what makes it controversial. And so the way that I'm using logic is just dividing up my argument into little parts that are going to add up to a conclusion. And if you do it well, that conclusion is going to feel inevitable. And these are the different types of claims that are going to lead to certain conclusions.